Good morning, everyone. It's Joker, and today we are back with another slime video and the newly revamped Heroes Jubilee, now labeled the Tempest Heroes Jubilee. So it's no longer Jubilee like 45 or whatever. It's Tempest Heroes Jubilee Lord of Darkness. So I assume this will be 1, and then next month will be Tempest Heroes Jubilee 2. And we'll be fighting probably one of the other Octagram characters. But we have a little bit of a difference here. All the battles are in one consolidated tab. Normal battles, boss battle. I have not done boss battles yet. But today we're going to be looking at normal battles. Specifically, Normal Battle 1, which I do have max scores on all of them. So we'll have those teams and a number of other teams to show off that are not quite as good. But looking at this stage, it wants a water magic team. You want to AoE here, because it is 3 ants all at the same time. What's different about these stages is that they are quite tanky. They have a lot of HP, compared to previous normal Catalyst Jubilees, where they had like 80,000 HP and they died if you breathed on them. So this makes it a lot easier to build up alts now that we have a lot of EX characters, and it does make things a bit easier. However, on the opposite side, if you do not have good elemental damaging characters, it makes it harder, because you're not going to do as much damage, and you might not actually even kill them, depending on how weak and unbuffed your characters are. So it's kind of a double-edged sword. But what does matter is that they want, quote-unquote, an AoE nuking character. They're catering to an orange meta, which is the Wielder of Magic team. They want you to use the Shinsha, well, not Shinsha, but Milim, Halloween Milim Protector, and the Water Hinata AoE Nuker to go ahead and destroy this stage, which we certainly do use that team. Other than that, they have physical resistance, so water physical, like Fantasy Milim, not really going to work all that well. Fount of Wisdom Rimuru, not going to work that well. This is a pretty hefty buff that you're going to have to get around. And the max turn bonus for this is turn 3, which is going to be kind of hard for people. But let's go ahead and show off the max score team first. Also, I totally forgot. Disclaimers. We always need to put the disclaimers in, so I'm just going to record this and we'll put it in front of all of them. Disclaimer number 1 is that your results will vary. Obviously, not everyone has the same units that I have, the dupes that I have, the gear that I have, the enchantments on the gear that I have. So please use this video as a guide, and then tailor it to whatever you have available in your own box. I can't show off 30,000 different teams in a video. You'll just kind of have to make your own team using your own brain power to get the jobs done. Disclaimer number 2 is that these are the characters I use for protection gauge throughout the fight, and then these are the units I use for skill points throughout the fight. They do differ, they do make a very big impact. And then disclaimer number 3 is don't forget to go into your town of Tempest and optimize your water, wind, or dark building, whatever stage you want, to get maximum results out of your nukers. Now, let's move on to whatever normal battle I'm talking about in this video. Okay, the max score for Normal Battle 1 looks like this. New Year's Shion, Summer Hinata for the Orb Steel, New Year's Blessing Rimuru for the Rainbow Orbs, Space Raphael for the Seal, because I think the ants have attack, crit, and pierce up, and we definitely don't want pierces. New Year's Blessing Milim for her buff, and then we're going to use the brand new Protector of Peace Rimuru to be our actual nuker, because he has his 150% ult damage. His guaranteed crits mean nothing, because we're already getting that from Shion, but we need to use him and the Milim buff in order to guarantee. And also, I think for this specific team, I needed my really, really, really good enchantments on his weapons. So this is not going to be a viable team for a lot of people. If you have access to Fount of Wisdom Rimuru, you could certainly bring him instead of this Rimuru. And maybe he won't hit max, but he'll certainly do a pretty good score. So we are running the skill point units under the front line, so Lumi, Soe, and Milim means that we're going to start with 48 skill points on turn 1 instead of 30. Okay, so starting out, I forgot to mention, for this we are running the AoE charm. for extra AoE damage, which is a pretty good multiplier, even if it's only 8%. But turn 1, we're going to bring Min Milim in. We're going to use the Seal for Raphael, so preventing the ants from getting their rates up on attack, crit, and pierce. They could still naturally do it if they hit their 2%, but you got to be real unlucky. But a lot of people get unlucky, unfortunately. But what this also means is that we have only sent a couple of orbs, so we've guaranteed that we have 3 Hinata orbs now, which means that we actually have 3 rainbow orbs for Rimuru, which actually means that we have 3 rainbow orbs for this Rimuru. And now we can send it. We're going to have an EX ult, we're going to have a lot of gauge, we're going to have maximum points, hopefully. We're very close to max points. Okay, well, it is what it is. So here, boom, we just cannot take more than 1 damage from anybody. So 1, 1, 1. If they pierce you, your max score is in the toilet. You can still do good damage, but your max score is in the toilet. So here we're going to bring Rimuru in, because he's physical, and we'll use the guaranteed crit and ult buff, we'll use the synergy and ult resistance down buff from Milim, and then we'll use Xion to give us guaranteed crit, guaranteed synergy, and the AoE buff as well. So now we're going to spread the damage out to lower their health even more, because we need to do that. We need 1.58 million overkill or something like that. So we need to do more damage to them initially, and then we can go ahead and nuke. And then Rimuru does almost 500k a hit, which is pretty good. So looking at the score breakdown, we have -6 to our damage taken, which is, for the multiplier, equals out to 0. We did 1.6 million here, and again, we only need to do like 1.58-ish around there to get max score. We are on turn 3, which is the max turn bonus, so this is the maximum score of 92.6. Now, this team is probably not going to be very feasible for a lot of people, but I do have to put it in as a max score team. Alright, next up, we're going to use the team that they actually want us to use, and that's the Wielder of Magic meta, with Milim, who's changing orbs to oranges just like New Year's Xion is, but a little bit worse. Guaranteed Pierce for magic allies, which we're going to nuke with the AoE Hinata that came with Milim, so she's going to do our primary damage. We're going to get the Rewind from the hero, because we definitely do need that if we want to use this team specifically to nuke in 3 turns. And then Shinsha's here, because she's got the extra protection gauge on blues and blue orb damage, which we're also going to need. And then her second skill, well, her first skill technically, is a 50% EX ult buff for magic allies, and Hinata is magic. Autogram Lumi here, her stacking ult buff, her stacking AoE damage is nice. Hinata is obviously our nuker. We have her element buff and her weakness strike. And then Ranga will be able to convert turn 1, because he changes Wielder of Magic orbs to orange. And we have Shinsha in the middle slot specifically for that reason. Okay, so for this team, the charm I'm running is Protection Gauge on oranges. So we can get a lot of Milim and not have to worry about it too much. But turn 1, we swap the hero out for Ranga, therefore both our 2 slots there are Wielder of Magic, so Ranga can convert them. That's why Lumi's in the 3rd slot. And we're going to send all these orbs against 1 ant, and we're just going to do that kind of over and over and over again. We're leaving Hinata in the back so we can bring her in for whoever has the most orbs on turn 2, which thankfully is Ranga. Now, we're not using Raphael here, so we are going to take damage, so this is not a max score team, but we can make it work. So now that Ranga has the orbs, we'll bring the hero in, we'll use her Rewind ability, and because Milim is an older protector, she does not have a passive. She does not passively give us points, she gives points when we use her. So we're going to get 40 points here, and the Guaranteed Pierce, and the Convert to Oranges. And now we have 68, which means we can use the Future Hand of Oranges, and then the Orange buff. 100% damage, and 60% protection gauge for 2 turns. This is very important, because it lowers the Ant's HP down, and gives us more Milim gauge, and helps us just do more damage. And the fact that we've used the Future Hand of Oranges skill from Hinata means that on the Rewind, we don't need to worry about RNG, because they're all guaranteed to be orange orbs. But now that we have a 100% orange buff, we need to spread the damage out a bit. If we were to send them all on 1 ant, they would die. And we very much want all of the ants alive for this AoE nuke. So now the Rewind kicks in, we almost have an EX ult for Hinata, and now that we have guaranteed oranges because of the skill, we can now do the extra stacking buffs from Lumi, and that gives us a 50% more alt gauge on all orbs, not just oranges, but every orb. So now this very much guarantees that even these 2 orbs that we use Hinata is going to get her EX alt. But now we have to be kind of picky on where we're sending orbs, because I, again, don't want to kill any of them. I need all of them alive to hit that damage cap. So here we're going to spread it, 79 points. We've got a double Milim, which is 40 additional skill points per use. So we have an extra 80 points in reserve, and this is why I wanted to use the protection gauge on Orange Charm. When you combine that with the extra gauge we get from Rewind, plus the extra gauge we get from Shinsha skill, it allows us to do this. So now we'll use the element buff from Hinata, the EX alt buff from Shinsha, we'll use Milim, give ourselves 40 more points, and then we can actually do it twice because we're not capped out yet. So this gives us 94 points now. Yeah, so we can use one more stack of the AoE buff because that's a lot stronger than the alt buff, and then we have 59 left over to bring the hero in and do guaranteed crits and crit resistance down. So this is going to do very well. I do want to single target alt with one of them though. So we're going to send Shinsha because she's fairly strong by herself. She has an EX alt, 700,000 damage, and then Hinata cleans up with 700 and then 600 over there. So that also gets us to the damage cap, still within 3 turns, and we've only taken a minimal amount of damage for our score. So we're just slightly under the cap, which for 99% of people is going to be just fine. I do want to make it clear that this team can also get max score if you get literally godly, like triple godly amounts of RNG. We've swapped Raphael for Ranga, so we no longer have that turn 1 orb changer. We've also brought 2 skill point units, Milim and Soe. And this is because we are going to, again, use Raphael for his seal to mitigate the damage that we're going to take. But turn 1, the idea is we're going to try and natural hand this entire thing. So we're going to bring Hinata in, we're going to bring Raphael in. This will make sure that we have points for next turn, and we have exactly enough points for next turn. And we can use Raphael's seal skill here. So 25 points right there. And then we're going to send 2 greens. That's it. That'll give us 30 points exactly, because we need to rewind next turn. We need to get a full hand of oranges here, and we need to get 30 points. If you can't do either of that, and we also can't take more than 1 damage a hit. So now we can bring the hero, the hero in for, I believe, Raphael. Yeah. And then we're going to rewind. And then we're going to get a lot of orange gauge here. But we can't do anything else because we don't have points yet. So we're going to spread the damage. Maybe? Yes. And then next turn, we also need to RNG our way into a perfect, literally a perfect hand. And I cannot replicate this again. I am so glad I recorded this because there's no way on fucking hell that I can do this again. So the rewind kicks in. We've sent 6 oranges, and we get a natural 6 green hand, which, once we use the buff from Lumi, will give them 50% extra alt gauge, which means that we can actually get the EX alt here, and enough points to do the damage that we need to do. So we're going to send these. Boom. Again, like, this is not a realistic team for really anybody. Yeah, I'm not going to tell you to sit here and fish for a natural hand of fucking greens. Or oranges, well, you know, whatever. It's actually probably has to be greens to have points. But again, we can only take 1 damage. Boom. And now we have 80, plus another 40 from Milim. So that allows us to use a small combination of buffs, but still the element buff. And then we can use Milim, give us 40 more. That puts us at 80, right? Or 60? 80. And now we can bring Shinsha in probably for the hero. Well, actually, do we use the hero? We use the hero. Okay. We use the hero, and then we bring Shinsha in for Lumi. And, oh, the hero again. There we go. And then we use her EX alt buff. 50%. So now, when we nuke, we can do enough damage. We're going to send Lumi first, just because we need to shave off some HP. We're looking at health, 143k. We're going to send the ult first, and then the Hinata ult. So Lumi, 45k. Alright, not great. But then Hinata, 536,000 damage right there. We have taken 0 damage, well, 6 damage. So technically, you can also hit a max score with this team. It's just very, 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 very unlikely that you will be able to do this. Alright, the next actual team we're going to show off is the Fount of Wisdom Rimuru team, as I mentioned earlier, right? If you don't have the new Protector of Peace Rimuru, you could try and bring Fount of Wisdom. We're going to do that here. So again, Xion. We're going to bring free-to-play Light Mirren, because she can convert turn 1 the 2 greens to 2 oranges. So she's going to work. Again, Octagram Lumi. Again, the Masked Hero for the rewind. Rimuru's here for the nuke. And then Shinsha is here for a either secondary nuke or just straight up support, depending on what you want to do. We're running Protection Gauge on oranges once again. And with this team, since we're not running defense, I'm not really worried about max score, so we're going to go to turn 5 with this team. Okay, so turn 1, we'll use the Mirren Orb change, call it good, we'll bring Rimuru in, we'll bring Shinsha in for the hero, we're going to leave Lumi so we can get her Protection Gauge traits, and then we're going to send this. And again, we're going to go to turn 5 on this, because I'm not worried about the turn bonus, I'm not worried about damage taken, I'm worried about hitting that overkill, because that's where most of our points are coming from. But on turn 4, the ant on the right has like 200% extra defense, and there ain't nothing we can really do about that. So here, we've used the Lumi buffs, and now we will bring in the hero for the rewind. So now we're getting extra gauge. Again, we have Protection Gauge on Orange Charm for Xion. So now we're going to spread the damage out and send it against the other ant. We're going to use the free 0-point orange alt swap because it just gives us a little bit extra gauge. And even though it will now cost 20 points, it's not a big deal. I'm not really worried about alt swapping. I just want as much protection gauge as possible. So here, there's really nothing we can do. Like, we don't have any future hands of skills here, so we're just going to have to make do with whatever I choose. We can't really orb change because we need to make sure that we cap out on points, because I want to use 80-point and a 55-point skill in one turn. So we're just going to send the greens, and we're just going to start lowering HP. We have 2 EX alts now. There's nothing really that I want to do else about that. I want to leave them up front to get the traits from Xion, extra physical attack if everyone has over 75% HP, and obviously we're not taking that much damage. But now, you can see that right ant gave himself a defense buff. Yeah, we don't want to nuke on turn 4, because we're not going to do really anything to him. So we're just going to have to burn this turn out. So now that it's turn 5, now we can do it, because his defense buff is gone. So now we're pretty okay. If you wanted to wait till turn 6, their physical resistance would leave as well. I nuke here instead of that turn. I don't know what they do after turn 6, so they might like stun you or something for all I know. So we're just going to avoid that. So we'll swap out the hero for Lumi. We'll use the physical buff, boom. And then we'll use the crit damage and alt damage buff from Shinsha. And then one more stack of the AoE buff from Lumi. We'll go ahead and use Xion, guaranteed crit, guaranteed synergy. And then we'll go ahead and spread the damage again. We'll send the Shinsha ult first, because she'll do pretty good damage. And then we'll send the AoE to follow up. So Rimuru, 59,000. Shinsha does 480k, and Rimuru does 420k on his AoE. So that does put us at the damage cap of 1.58, whatever. Turn bonus obviously is a little bit lower, and we have taken damage. But 87.3 as a final score for going to turn 5 is not bad, considering that the actual cap is 92,000. Like, oh no, we've lost 5,000 points. Whoop-de-fucking-do. This team can work fine. Alright, and the final team, which is the poor man's team, as I always try and do. No EX characters on the battlefield, well, at least in the front lines. We're running Protector Toa, again, Light Mirren, Octagram Lumi, the Masked Hero, pretty good mainstays. And then we're going to try and nuke with old Water Xion and Water Shuna. Now, we are not going to do damage cap with this team. We're also going to turn 5 with this team, shock surprise. But if this is all you can muster, because you don't have any Water EX characters, because technically Water's not really in a great spot right now, this is your next best option. Now, if you have better protectors, certainly use those. Like Exalted Champion Velzard will work a lot better than Toa. Again, you'll just have to tailor it to whatever you have available. Okay, so just like the last fight, turn 1, we're going to use Mirren for her orb change, because she's free to play, easy to get, just from flashback crystals. So we'll do that, and then we'll bring in our 2 water characters. We're going to have to really focus on doing specific damage to certain ants to get them just as low as possible before we happen to nuke. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. You see we're doing super weak point because we're water magic. We still not are doing that much damage. So here, all right, thank you, and thank you, and thank you. We're not worried about damage taken here. We've got 66 points. Let's use the stacks from Lumi just to help us do more damage. The AoE buff doesn't help Shuna at all because she's single target, but it does help Xion at least. Which she needs it because she's not an EX character, which means that she doesn't get a fairly powerful ult. She's at a huge disadvantage compared to Shuna. But let's use this. 40 skill points. We'll use the rewind because we used Toa, got 40 back. So we'll use the rewind. We'll just try and build up gauge as much as possible. They're not EX ult. They're not EX characters, so we don't need that much ult gauge for them. But I do want points and protection gauge. So here, let's use the orange convert. Let's just send the Shuna orbs on the ant that we haven't hit yet, just to lower him down as well. And then we're going to chill for 2 turns, because there's nothing we really can do. Technically, I could send a hero ult and a Xion ult here, because I have a double Xion bar, and it would just lower them down even further. But I swapped them out in favor of getting more orbs. So we're going to send the hero ult, and then we're going to send the rest of these hero orbs, which is going to get another ult for her, which means we can send her ult again on turn 4 and lower their HP. But if you pay attention very closely to the ant on the right who gets that defense buff, when we send the ult with Hinata, or the hero, it doesn't do a lot. Yeah, it did 1. I'm fairly certain that did 1, as those normal attacks also did. But now we have max points. Now we have a double Toa, which means we can use a number of buffs here. So we'll bring in Shuna, we'll bring in Xion. Now we're going to use the hero buff because it's just better than Xion's other skill. So crit resistance down, but the water attack is important. We'll use Toa the first time. This will give us 85 points. We can use the water buff, or the ult buff and the water resistance down. And then we'll use Toa again. And now we have enough points to use the hero skill, which is also skill fused technically. So we're getting an extra 10%. If she's not, she's still doing 30% crit resistance down. You'll do slightly less damage, not by too much though. But what I should have done here is I should have sent the normal orbs first. 168 for Shuna, 114, 112 for Xion. We're using the protection gauge on Orange Charm just for extra gauge because I want the double Toa. And yeah, that's a much worse score. 15,000. 54.5 is not great, but hey, it's better than nothing. So there are a number of teams you can attempt to use for Normal Battle 1. Obviously, this is not every single team available in the game ever. So if you have done this stage with a different team that you found works, please put it down in the comments so other people can check it out. But that's it for me, guys. Take it easy, and I'll see you all later.